Hi, how you doing in the name of Christ? How you? What's up? It's your girl Cranky. It's Karabo. I hope you're good. I hope you're peachy. I hope you're stellar, and I hope you're in a neat little bunch. If you're not, welcome to the party. That's just the general status of my life. It's never in a neat bunch. Okay, cool beans and bananas. Let me just put some caveats on them. Kindly note that I have got these captions that are not always accurate. They sometimes use a small g for God. They're sometimes irreverent. They are sometimes misspelled, etc. All that jazz. One day in the future, God willing, I will adjust them. 1 second. Yeah. Kindly look out for my captions. Then next up, kindly look out for my application makeup. I'm very potentially wearing it. If I am, you'll know. If I'm not, you'll also know. I'm not shapeshifting. And then I have a segment where I pinch my cheeks. I just want to get this out the way, over and done with. I've got computer problems and they're just distracting me so severely. But anyway, whatever. It's fine. Like I can't multitask on my computer. But anyway, I do this whole process of pinching my cheeks to show you that when you prick me, I bleed. I'm only human. I just want to get it out the way because now I've just got these problems with my computer. Like it has just restarted on me while I was in the process of uploading content, and while YouTube just picks up from where it left off, it's still very inconvenient. But yeah, anyway, whatever. Let me just get straight into the gist of the matter. Like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, yeah, the intention of this whole exercise is to display that I've got blood in my body. When you prick me, I bleed. Some days it works, other days it doesn't. And today I don't think it worked, but frankly, I don't care. I'm just moving on. Right now, I'm just, yeah, really bummed about what's going on with my computer. But anyway, it's old. And every so often when I'm doing too many things at the same time, it just crashes. But let me just speak through it. Okay. It'll come back and I'll upload that content. It's not even very long videos. It's like I am so distracted. Like even that Apple logo is not showing and I'm just like, show, like, for crying out loud. Anyway, whatever we deal. We're back. Let me just get this message out the way because frankly it's literally too early in the morning for me to be concerned about what's going on back there. Ultimately I will prosper to get everything done that I need to get done because that's just what I do. That's who I am. That's who I be. That's how I roll. Like eventually everything gets done. So whatever. Even if my computer takes a whole decade to do what it needs to do. I don't want to be distracted by that very process. I don't want to be distracted because I need to get something out. Like, whoa, like just do something better over here. Ish. Okay, that's better. I had to unplug it from the back just to get it to even restart. Whatever. These are the kinds of things that make people involved in some severity just feel really hopeful where I'm concerned. I'm just gonna get straight into this message. Frankly, I need to rush through it because it's too early in the morning for me to be doing. Too late. Like it's like 2:30 or something, and I've still to eat dinner, all that jazz. Like I ain't got time for this. Yeah, whatever. Look, I had a rapture dream last night, but it was severely demonic. It was not glorious. It had no God in it. Like no God, just Satan. Perhaps, look, this message is essentially just an extreme warning to Christians to look out for fake rapture dreams. So I come from a time, alright, where it is that my life was so sad, it was so hard, everything just sucked so badly that I desperately wanted the rapture to happen because how else am I getting out of this? I imagine that there's no way that I'm going to escape these horrible life conditions unless the rapture happens. Yeah, you know, I felt like the only way out was through the rapture. Even though I was not leaning on nothing but the rapture, but I certainly was mostly hopeful for it. And so I basically had a self-fulfilling bias, a self-fulfilling prophecy just kind of dwelling in my bones, where I was actively seeking out YouTube channels that were talking about stuff like this. I was going out of my way to listen to people who even went out of their way to predict dates and everything, using all different kinds of charts, and I would get myself all riled up. But unfortunately, or fortunately, despite how anticipatory I was, there was something at the back of the head there that was like, this is dangerous, like this is not reliable, like don't, okay? You cannot be holding on to this only. You need to have something else to look at because that's going to be the better goalpost that you put out for yourself than waiting for the rapture. We wait for Christ's return, we wait for the rapture, we wait for the second coming, we wait for the rapture, even before the second coming, because that's what we're told to wait for in the Bible. It's the right thing to do, but we need to fill the earth and occupy it in the run-up too. But there was a time when I was just watching, not so much watching nothing but this stuff, but I was trying to encourage myself with it. Sorry. I was trying to encourage myself with it by basically saying that this is going to end badly for my enemies, because one day I'm just going to disappear and they're going to be real scared. Okay. And yeah, cool. I did this for maybe like a couple of months, a year. Alright, it didn't even last very long. And the severity of sorrow and disappointment that I felt when a certain time would come and go, a certain date would come and go, when a certain season would come and go, when things would be happen. Look, I'm smart, okay? And looking at the world around and Bible prophecy as it is being fulfilled, unfolding on the earth, I was not able to successfully 100% map it being the very end of the end of the end of the end of the end, right, to all of Bible prophecy. There were just certain things that were yawning at me, gawking at me, screaming at me, that I just felt either there must be a massive gap between the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation, where we're in heaven for like a couple of years before the tribulation even starts, which I mean, it takes away from the element of surprise, frankly, I don't know. Or we still have time here for a minute longer, because certain things just need to kind of be a problem, before the tribulation commences. Not so much the rapture itself, but the tribulation. Certain, like the thing that sparks the tribulation, certain things have to be in place. And by imagining that there is by thinking, okay, that there is like the rapture is chronologically followed by the tribulation ever so immediately. When you think that way, it just looks to me like a little bit still needs to happen. Not a lot, just a little, right? And that was something that was really just kind of messing with me once again. Okay, look, my computer is up and running, so I don't like multitasking like this, because then it distracts from the attention of what I'm saying right now. But I'm going to be doing stuff on the computer while I'm talking, because it's imperative that I do stuff on the computer while I'm talking, because there's stuff that I'm doing on the computer while I'm talking. It needs to happen. Alright, yeah, anyway, let's just get straight into the point. The waiting around for the rapture was a thing. It still is. But like, it was very discouraging, very sorely discouraging, especially from around 2019, 2020 with the global disease. There were so many people that rocked up, and they just had these like speculations, and they were also compelling, and they've been compelling all these years down the line still, that it has flattened my heart rate, basically, from looking out for just that. I have made a solid determination to keep hoping for a future while being biblical, while hoping that the rapture does happen, but not giving all my eggs in that basket. Like, it's just not safe. It is not safe. I enjoy eschatology, looking at it. I enjoy people finding stuff that's going on and mapping it to the Bible. I enjoy that. But I am a woman that is suffering severely with absolutely nothing to her name, with nowhere to look, nothing essentially, that is looking up for her, largely. And so for those reasons, it's just not safe for me to, like, I don't have much else that I am, doing with my life, okay, to have a buffer, like a shock absorber, when I get disappointed. Like, when that's all you have, when the hope in that particular thing is super poignant because it's all you have, it's just dangerous for a person in my shoes. And I'm smart enough and wise enough to understand that that's a thing. So I made a decision to just stop looking out for nothing but the rapture. I am watching now, when it comes to eschatology, people who are a lot more responsible with rapture talk or with tribulation talk, people who are not focused on nothing but that, who do cover end times news, indeed, but like, there is a sense of reality in them too. Like, those are largely the only ones I listen to, because there are people who will get you all riled up and all excited, and it's just, yeah, it's extremely discouraging. And during the time when I was as discouraged as I was, so I'm doing stuff in the back end here, I've got to do it, because absent of doing it, like, I thoroughly am just going to be a blob of nothingness, just merely existing, gathering dust and ceasing to exist at some point. Okay, yeah, I've got like a ridiculous schedule that's backed up, and it's worsened by the slowness of my computer, because really I could do things a lot faster and within a more reasonable time space, but I'm not quite prospering because of my computer. But anyway, whatever. Yeah, the rapture, during the time when I was in this mode, where I was hoping for that largely. When I was super disappointed, my heart would be slumped and stooped, and I would be grumbling and basically just kind of making it clear that, God, you have left me, you've forsaken me. Like, how could you just leave me in all of this arid desert land? It's all so dry. Like, what is going on? Like, what is happening? If not the rapture, then what? If not the rapture, then what? And all I could do was also look at God on some, so let me just like get this straight, right? So you save me only to endure me through like a whole bunch of nonsense for like years. And then we get raptured. Could you not just have given me a husband and children while we wait? Couldn't you just have given me what I needed until such time that it was now time to go? You know what I mean? Why create the sorrow in my life if you knew that we were just, from the date of my redemption, like 15 years away? If we were just like 10 years away, why not just give me some kind of a semblance of a normal life as a Christian, and then, you know, go on right ahead to take us when I'm out of fellowshipping in a church with a newborn baby and a 4-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter and a husband and a 16, like, you get my point. Like, could I just not have lived? Like, just lived. Could I just not have lived? Something inside me was like, you have got to have been doing a lot more with my life and my testimony to allow me to endure so much sorrow at the hands of my country. This cannot just end with a rapture. It can't. You've got to have been doing a lot more with my pain. In other words, like, how can I describe this? Like, Penina mocked Hannah for years before she got her baby, and those years that she was being mocked, everything was oblivious. Everything just seemed so obscure for Hannah that there was no way that she was getting out of this. I'm multitasking. I'm looking up there. It looked like there's no way that she's gonna get the baby, and then she did. So there is like a punch in the face of Penina, who imagined that you're old now, you've got a geriatric womb practically, like really, like you're not having a baby, and then she has 7. You know what I mean? And in the story of Joseph is for me, I think the biggest story that I would imagine is sort of kind of similar to mine, in that he was betrayed by his own brethren, you know. And God, for me, it was like, imagine Joseph in Egypt, basically suffering from like some sickness, all right, like being like having a cough, a cough, yeah. And back then, you know, there was no penicillin or whatever, no antibiotics, and he's thinking that he's gonna die from this. And at that time, he's like in jail, he's in prison, he's in an Egyptian prison, and he's about to pass away. What would Joseph think? Joseph, for me, it's like he would be like, just like that. So you give me all those dreams and visions, you tell me what's gonna happen, and then I just pass away in a foreign country in prison from like a sickness that comes into my lungs. So this is what you fashioned for me. This is why couldn't I just have stayed in Canaan? Couldn't, like, there was just so much more that I could have done for you from that vantage point. Couldn't I have just had a wife and children then? Like, brothers persecute me until I moved out of my father's camp, but, you know, keeping in touch, giving him a cell phone number, proverbially, of course. But like it can't just, for me, it's like, is that it? Like, things just can't end like this. Like, yeah, fine. So I die and I go to heaven. I perish and I go to heaven because I'm Joseph. I'm born again. But this is it. Is that it really? This is all you're doing with my story. What I'm trying to explain is that there tends to be massive, jam-packed purpose behind persecution. Like, just every story, every harrowing story in the Bible where there was some kind of exquisite persecution of God's people for any amount of time always resulted in just this big pow exit for God's people. Wow, all my 3 videos uploaded on this channel. Good. Okay. Yeah, it just resulted in just this mighty breakthrough, this act of God that evidenced that it was God. Basically, God, you know, trumpeting on a rooftop that I have rocked up for my child. And never mind for my child, but for my own namesake. Like, I am God, and the whole earth is full of my glory, and the heavens shake and rattle, because I say so. And what horrible deed that you did to my child I indeed am God who works it out together for their good. I display my power through the weakness of my saints. My grace is sufficient for them, and my power is made perfect in their weakness. I make them weak, that it might be clear that I am God. The ones who hold on to me, who don't steer from me and turn aside to idols, to do wickedness in that regard. The ones who hold me near, dear, fast, and determinately, they the ones that make it possible for me to display that I am God. It is for them that I pitch. It is for them that I rock up. It is for them that I arrive at the scene, right? And it becomes clear when I deliver them, me and my eyesight issues, it becomes clear when I deliver them that that was of me, that essentially vengeance was of me, deliverance was of me, comeuppance was of me, breakthrough was of me, handling her enemies or his enemies was of me. They tend to have been in a very, very, very lowly, weak, like finished off position, these disciples of mine. Like there is no help coming inside, that the fear of the Lord might course through the veins of the lands when they make an observation of the miraculous Lazarene resurrection that my child ultimately walks in, when it appeared as if though this child of mine was not going anywhere. There tends to be an exquisite breakthrough story. Look, I'm not saying all the time. There are Christians that go through a lot of severity, guys, in some pretty terrible countries that ransack believers. They kill them, they martyr them, they scratch them and stuff like that off the face of the earth entirely. And their testimony is that martyrdom, and it plants seeds for the church, right? So I am not disqualifying or discounting those who die in the midst of sorrow, but I am trying to highlight that there is always something very God glorifying about every last persecuted Christian's life, testimony, outcome, and what ultimately gets done there. Yeah, well, pretty much outcome. And for me, like, you know, to just merely either pass away or get raptured, the rapture is a lot more glorious than just dying. But I'm just saying I am not wise. The Bible says that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, his ways are not ours. His thoughts are loftier, his ways are mightier, etc. He thinks loftier than us. We are just nothing in the sight of a holy God. And we largely sometimes even think just a ton of nonsense, okay? So therefore we cannot dare imagine that we can speculate or even recommend what God ought to be doing for the day, what he ought to be doing in our cases. We are going to fall severely short on that day when we try. But it's only reasonable to assume or to presuppose that there's got to be more to a story than what meets the eye. When what it is that meets the eye, it's just too it's like a flat line. It's like an anticlimax. I don't know, like this, when something is just, it has an anticlimactic potential outcome, I think it's just, you know, decent to conclude that God probably is not doing that because he's always just used suffering to make it clear that I am God and all of your idols ain't. And those of you that ransack the living daylights out of my disciple, you were sorely mistaken. You were sorely mistaken with your nihilism, with your agnosticism, with your atheism, with your idol worship of other gods, your ancestral worship, your blah, blah, blah. You were sorely mistaken. Like, sorely. Yeah, you who scattered my disciples, imagining that you can wipe them off the face of the earth. You were sorely mistaken. God always just rocks up with like a big powy message. Yeah, so I mean, like Hannah had to have 7 children after being barren. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like she had to have, it had to be that explosive. It couldn't be just 1 or 2. It had to be 7. And so too did Joseph have to become the second most powerful man in Egypt, not just merely one of Pharaoh's, you know, military men or one of Pharaoh's counselors. He had to, like, it had to be that explosive. It had to be a nuke of a deliverance to put a man through all that, for God to allow the endurance of a Christian, a believer, in the case of the Old Testament Jews, to go through literally almost 2 decades of all that sorrow. There had to be an explosive end to it all. There had to be an explosive end to that level of suffering. Like, I just don't say, like, only look, it's even biblical, because the Bible says that no eye has seen, nor mind conceived, nor no ear has heard, no eye has seen, no ear heard, no mind conceived the things which God has prepared for those who wait for him. Okay, yeah, so there is just a clarity of exquisite deliverance and breakthrough and provision ultimately by God when people wait. It's just correlated. The scriptures make it clear that there is massive returns. There are massive returns to be enjoyed by the one who patiently endures evil. Those are his promises. And while heaven is a massive return, it is a massive return for every saint, ubiquitously, with no discrimination. It's a massive return. It's an end result for everybody, for the martyred saint and for the one that gets to live to the age of 95 and then passes away from natural causes. Heaven is a massive return for every last saint. But the wicked on the earth, okay, a lot of them don't even believe in heaven. They are nihilistic. They think nothing happens when we pass away, or they think they are going to heaven too, until they find out the hard way that they're not. When they die, they find that out when they die. It's written in God's word that God is gathering for himself a people for his own possession, right? So in order for God to proliferate the gospel on the earth, because really it's his proliferation of the gospel through us, he has got to make his glory known to man that they might embrace him as God. He has got to make it clear to them that he is jealous for them, that they might abandon their idols and serve the one true God. And the way that God does that is, like I said, through these showy, ostentatious displays of his power in the lives of those that have not turned aside to idols, but have held fast to him. He is a doting dad in the worst way. He displays himself as such ultimately to those who don't turn aside to fables, to myths, to idols. And their long-suffering and patience gets handsomely rewarded with good and perfect gifts that are from above and from the Father of heavenly lights. So that everyone around that made an observation of this particular woman or man's testimony will glorify God in heaven when they get a breakthrough, or get severely judged since they were antagonizing that Christian, sending fear throughout the lands for the God of that delivered saint. And so therefore, evangelizing anyone that can look onto that situation. And so therefore, successfully bringing for himself a people for his own possession through that testimony. The Great Commission on the planet cannot be achieved successfully absent of Christian testimony. We overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and we cannot testify of finally being told in heaven by God, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have fought the good fight. You have run the race. You have kept the faith." We can't testify of it yet because we're gone. We're dead. We've left this plane. We're in the sky. We are with the Lord forever. And while heaven is rejoicing and we are rejoicing, don't nobody know largely. And those that did not believe in God, who thought we were wasting time with him, will just be like, whatever happens when they die. You know, she believed that she's going to heaven, so maybe that's where she's at. There's nobody looking in awe at the piercing into heaven by someone who fought the good fight, ran the race, and kept the faith. Someone who strove to make heaven enter in and actually succeed. For many on that last day will try to and not be able. The only time that we're going to testify of having broken through into heaven, pierced in, finally made it, is, I believe, at the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. Saints are going to return with the Lord, but not everybody's going to get to see the saints come back with the Lord, because some people will have passed away long ago. Some people, yeah, you get my point. There will be human beings on the earth that are not going to know, right? And the saints that come back with God, some of them will have been from so long ago that there'll be nobody alive in that present era or time to basically witness that, oh my goodness, that's John. He spoke so much about God. He's actually in heaven now, because all those people are dead from all of those centuries ago. The only time when the saints are going to testify that they finally made it to heaven is, I guess, at the Great White Throne Judgment, where God is gathering everybody to judge everybody, and saints are judging the world with Jesus. Right? That's the only time. But before then, the Great Commission gotta happen, that people might avoid being on the bad side of God at the Great White Throne Judgment. He's gathering for himself a people for his own possession. So how in the world do you show a person God? How does God show people himself and the veracity of his person to disincentivize them from continuing with idols? He must, of course, do ostentatious shows of his power on the earth, just like he did at the Red Sea. You know how it caused the world around Egypt to fear the God of the Hebrews because of what he did to the Israelites. Sorry, to the soldiers of Pharaoh, to Egypt, because of what he did to Egypt in getting these people set free from those bonds. It was all showy. God has a thing about being showy. Even with Samson, when he was dying, he sought the Lord's face to give him might and power and breakthrough and deliverance at his death. And in his death, Samson, it is written, killed more Philistines than he did when he was alive, because he asked for power to be restored to him, and God gave him that power at the final hour. There is an ostentatious display of power at the end of a man's life that was earthly, felt, understood, and therefore likely sent a ricochet of shockwaves in all of ancient Philistia, otherwise known as modern day Palestine. Let's just put that out there. That place don't exist. Yeah, so with that being like a whole thing, just making an observation of Bible stories, for me, it's like heaven is all of our inheritance. It is all of our great provision. It is all of our mammoth gift that no eye has seen, no mind conceived, no ear heard, when God awards it to us ultimately. But it is unseen until further notice, until the great white throne judgment. It's largely a speculated, unconfirmed phenomenon by the global citizenship that don't believe, that don't have faith. The global citizenship that don't have faith merely speculate that we might be in heaven. And top of that, they think everybody else that died, that wasn't saved, is also in heaven, right? What does God do to bring people to himself? And why would the Lord endure a saint through suffering at the scale of what I've gone through, at the scale of what Joseph went through, Hannah, etc., etc.? Guys, I'm inheriting heaven, like that's gonna happen, okay? But like if I died and went to heaven, people would literally have just gotten away with murder on the earth. If you think about it this way, like even in the book of Revelation, when those martyred saints under the altar are lamenting, how long are you going to give us justice? They're in heaven. They have essentially arrived. Precious in the sight of the Lord. It is written somewhere in the Proverbs, I believe. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. So they're in a safe environment where they're going to be eternally blessed, eternally joyful, eternally buoyant, eternally bountiful, eternally bouncy, like newborn babies. They're good, but they're still lamenting. When are we going to get our justice? They're still crying, even though they've made it. You fought the fight, you've run the race, you've kept the faith. You did not love your life unto death, you died for the cause, and yet they're still complaining. So there is just something about deliverance on the earth, breakthrough on the earth, that makes for a comprehensive witness or a testimony for a Christian. Like the full package of a testimony for a Christian is both earthly deliverance and, of course, acquisition of heaven. Acquisition of heaven, of which the world, all of it, is going to find out as a thing only at the great white throne judgment. But how does the Lord show his power now? Through our breakthrough and our deliverance here and now on the earth. Indeed, even in Mark 10, this is validated. It is written that anybody that has left fields, homes, mothers, brothers, sisters, etc., for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, will gain here on this earth, 100-fold over that which they have lost with persecutions. And in the next life, eternal life, like Mark 10 just makes it clear that it's a two-pronged approach. It is a kicking behind process by the believer on earth and by making heaven. We do both. We do both. And the scriptures are littered with such stories as these. You know how David wrote that beautiful poem to God at the end of his life, that psalm saying, "You delivered me from absolutely everything." David was known as one of God's mighty men. He was a man after God's own heart that had many feats in his life, many enemies, and he conquered them all. Saul, Absalom. I could go on. Who's that Philistine? Goliath. He had so many feats that he overwhelmed in the power of God. And so the fear of God was spread all throughout Israel because of the faith of David. And then, well done, my good and faithful servant. You fought the fight, you've ran the race, you've kept the faith. When he dies, 100-fold over here on earth, and in the next life with persecutions, and in the next life, eternal life. So, I mean, totally, I'm for it. I'm all for the rapture. Like, yo, I'm ready for it. I'm taking it, all right? If anything, it's first prize some days for me because I'm tired of this earth. It's evil. It's evil. But it also does not... for me, it's like there's something missing. There are, dotted lines. Something got to be filled in those dotted lines. There is a dotted line, I imagine, before the rapture. Like, there's a dotted line, guys, and it's missing blanks. There's blanks, and the blank is earthly deliverance for me. The blank for me is fine. Potentially, I could be like the martyrs under the altar, saying, "God, when are you gonna give me justice?" Indeed, true story. But when I get like a hard knock evil dream, like a crazy demonic dream, trying to make me think that the rapture is 2 seconds away, I'm like, you know what? You're desperate to take away that which I conquer the devil by. We overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. I am out here testifying about what God has done for me in suffering and likely will do for me in deliverance and breakthrough. And I got people working tooth and nail, including the devil that they serve, trying to make me focus on nothing but the end is here, the end is here, the end is here. Yeah, it is. But like, the end has been here for a minute. And look, I do believe we're at the end of the end. But just how tail end we are, that much is something I cannot validate or confirm. I'm just concerned about certain things that I feel as if though a little minute longer, maybe 5 years, I don't know, right? That just needs to sort of kind of fit into place. For me, it's about the Middle East. It is about the marvel that Jerusalem presently is, that Israel presently is, in conquering its enemies. It's about the fact that recently, enemies that are known to rise up against Egypt, not against Egypt, sorry, but against Israel, in the end, allied with Israel recently in that Iranian barrage of attacks, right? With those drones. Yeah, enemies of God that are spoken of as allying in a confederation of nations against Israel. Some of them were involved in that defense of Israel, giving Israel airspace. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, it is speculated that it is among the Gog and Magog countries. And for me, for as long as and also many of the surrounding nations that were supposed to also ally against Israel just decided to stand back. Egypt's lack of cooperation to embrace Palestinians in their ecosystem, for me, is also another thing. It's like people just don't want to fight. They are doing everything in their power to de-escalate instead of perpetuate this war in the Middle East. And the UAE is more interested commercially or economically in what Israel can do with it together than it is interested in allying with other Muslim nations, whether or not some are Shia Muslim or whatever the difference is. I really don't know, and I don't care either. I apologize if you think I'm ignorant, but I focus on what is my faith, really. Yeah, you get my point. Somebody else let them do the apologetics concerning differences between religions. I'm just not that girl. It's not my niche, is not my thing. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, cool beans and bananas. There's just a lot that I feel just keeps falling apart. And also the fact that Israel, because thanks to that barrage of attacks that came from Iran, while that might be unprecedented, which is something to highlight and look out for, at the end of the day, the response by Israel, first of all, their defense was on fire. They intercepted like 95 or 90% of those missiles, right? Also, their response was precise, it was sharp, and it resulted in, well, likely is going to result in a de-escalation. Nobody's going to war. It did not result in an all-out war. They attacked an Iranian military base, I believe, in Syria. And that was all they did. They responded, but without actually going to war. It could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't. And it's stuff like that for me. It's like stuff that makes you rise up off your chair, and then you relax afterwards, because it's literally like an anticlimax. You expect it to be a lot worse, and then it just isn't. There is still, long story short, what I'm trying to explain to you guys, a strength and a girth of this cup of trembling that is Jerusalem. Enough for it to not be so beleaguered and ostracized on all sides that it might eventually get to the Gog and Magog war, which is an eschatological war. It is at the end of days. I'm just looking at all that, and even though the attacks and the barrage of insults on Israel keep inclining, there is also quite a strong response and a power that they have that their enemies just cannot fight. They're literally like a cup of trembling. The feeblest among them are like the house of David, just like it's written in Zechariah 12. You get my point. So just based on stuff going on in the Middle East, that for me is like, give it a little time. Iran needs to suffer the fate of a broken bow. They probably are going to have their little nuclear site bombed or something by Israel one of these days. When that happens, then I'll be like, okay, let me pack my heavenly bags, we're going. But there's just stuff that, I'm not saying that, look, I believe that the rapture is imminent. But even within that imminency, I think we have to be realistic about how much can possibly happen between the rapture and the tribulation commencing. It cannot be that much. And the gap cannot be that big, even if there is one. It cannot be like a whole decade, because then like anticlimax much. Remember that time when all those funny people disappeared? 10 years ago, it was terrible. It was a terrible time in history. There would even be books written about it. I don't think there's going to be such a long gap that the situation would end up being indeed just that, truly history. And then there's all these weird little alien sightings all over the show, right? That are happening all over the show. They are obviously part of the deception. It's like clear, it's overt, it's all up in your face. And I'm looking for that to continue to ramp up, especially in other countries, you know. Like, I'm not underestimating America's report on this, I believe them, but for me, it's like, can we cite them here a lot too? Can we also see strange unidentified aerial phenomenon in Africa? Can we do that? Can we make an observation of the strange phenomenon in these streets a lot? Then maybe I'll be like, okay, the deception is prepped even for Africa. It's largely South America that's seeing all of these strange things, and of course North America. Yeah, and that's not so much that's about it, but like it's not ubiquitous enough for me, the alien problem. I don't think it's ubiquitous enough for it to yield an acclimatized sentiment in the global citizenship enough to embrace the alien story. So if at all that's going to be the cover story for what happened with us, we need to start seeing them in these streets. So the moment somebody from South Africa out here captures a UAP, the moment someone sights it, a couple of people witness it, the moment these funny aircraft start hovering over Africa, and I'm waiting for it because Africans practice so much witchcraft. The reason why these phenomenon happen even the way that they do is precisely because people just keep on dabbling with sorcery, making their unfortunate countries a hotbed of portals open until literally stuff just pierces into the cosmic space through it and then haunts a country. So I mean, in America, I feel as if though they have done experiments that at like the state level that were messing with this particular realm until there were like a lot of sightings. And yeah, you get my point. Lots and lots of sightings. I don't know, guys. Like, look, I can't tell you why in the world of the heaven all these things are happening so much in the US. Plus, it's a global superpower. So, of course, the devil is going to focus a lot of his energy on them because they're extremely influential. So he will, yeah, sort of kind of pull stunts of that nature a lot to American citizens type establishment thing. But like I said, I'm waiting for it to come to Africa. Am I ignorant? Are there sites that one can go to, like little forums online where people are basically throwing in their stories telling about how it is that they sighted UAPs, UFOs and stuff, and there's a lot of them coming from South Africa, there's a lot of them coming from Kenya, Nigeria. If I'm missing something, then please let a sister know, but for now I feel as if though the issue is a little bit concentrated in the West, to a point where we cannot therefore then ubiquitously apply to the global population to imagine that everybody has been acclimatized. I feel as if though the acclimatization of everybody is going to have to be ubiquitous for that to be a believable lie. Yeah, so yes, the aliens are being sighted, total true story, but can we see them around these streets? Like, can we? I mean, I don't want to see them. Heck no. I'm not trying to see anything funny, strange that's going to paralyze me or attempt to paralyze me, because a lot of people testify to feeling a little paralyzed, unable to move when they're all up in their grill or dizzy. I don't want to experience anything of that nature, right? I'm not trying to get dizzy, but I am saying let somebody then else, not me, let somebody else find an alien in their backyard in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in Lesotho, Botswana, Nigeria, Congo, Algeria, even Northern Africa up there, like proper, even in Egypt. I mean, they're the ones with all the weird little histories of alien speculations. Yeah, but like, it's not really a thing in these African streets. It's not. And Africa's part of the global citizenship. So yeah, I don't know. And again, also Australia, like I've not heard many stories coming from there. Yeah, anyway, you get my point, right? You grab. There's quite a lot that still needs to, the gangrene needs to spread. Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm trying to get at. The gangrene needs to spread. The gangrene needs to spread. It certainly has commenced, and it's lethal. I believe it has spread to parts of the body where it is that an amputation will no longer help. You know what I mean? So the person basically is just like on death row now. They've got a couple of months to live. But that sepsis has not yet reached a vital organ enough to lay them on the ground. But it's spread far enough for this thing not to be salvageable. The earth is no longer salvageable. I don't believe that apart from the second coming, the rapture, the second coming and all that jazz, that this here is salvageable. There's too much evil. Evil, once it has commenced, will always just have its progenies, okay? People will not let it go. We know how Hitler, we see that dude still got Nazis like in 2024. Like once evil has rooted, it just sticks. There are people who hold fast to it and they won't let it go. So all these menacing cultures that have raised up from the ground from all across our nations that are evil and frankly unacceptable and historically unfathomable. The way that they're so unconscionable, The way that it's just so bizarre that some people would never have even thought of stuff like that. Now they are walking these streets, hopping up and down like kangaroos. They've popped out. They've reared their ugly heads. And unfortunately, just like Nazism, they're not going anywhere. So this year is not a salvageable circumstance, even in the slightest. The earth is not salvageable. The evil is only going to get worse and worse because it's got its progenies, it's got its offspring, and they will continue to proliferate. They will continue to procreate further. More of them are going to pop out like Blubber, that movie Blubber with Robin Williams. There's going to be more Blubbers of it. So there's no stopping this. There's no stopping it. But I do believe that the gangrene is not so far, or the sepsis is not so far so as to attack vital organs of the planet, bringing about a sudden death. But just like with any sepsis, any sort of kind of necrotizing bacteria in the body, it's only a matter of time before a person dies, and it's fast spreading. It's fast spreading. It is fast spreading. So I do imagine that the frequency and intensity will increase, and it'll ramp up ever more. And it's sooner than we all think, duh. Like, that's pretty clear. It's overt. However, I don't think it's tomorrow. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's tomorrow. And by tomorrow, I mean, I don't think it's next year. You get my point? Like, I don't think it's so around the corner that how about we just, like, stop living? Not that anybody should stop living. That's never, ever an instruction that God gave us. But stop hoping is what some people are doing. There are a lot of Christians across the world that are kind of throwing in the towel based on the ramping up of events. And for me, it's like, guys, it's dangerous. Like, you gotta fight. This is your earth. You are apparently gonna, like, it's yours. The meek shall inherit the earth and delight themselves in abundant peace. So you should fight. Ultimately, it will be entirely yours. Like, at the millennial reign of Jesus Christ, it's gonna be clear that this is your planet and everybody else is just living in it. Okay? But until such time that we do get to a point where we can say, this is my earth and you're just living in it, until such time that we can get there, we need to fight for what piece of turf we have. Because, frankly, we are gonna grow among tares, meaning that we have to fight for our constitutional rights to exist in our countries. We have to, therefore, fill the earth and occupy it. We have got to strive to survive, to live, to prosper, to thrive in whatever ecosystems we find ourselves in. We can't just throw in the towel because the times are getting more and more severely evil. We can't. Because then, in the run-up to the rapture finally happening, lives are just going to be so crazy discouraged. Christian lives are just going to be so sad, so flat. So, yeah, like a banana peel on the side of the street, just slipping everybody up, punctured like a tire type thing. You gotta fight for your piece of earth like proper, because God gave it to you to be fruitful in it and multiply, to fill the earth and occupy it. And it is irresponsible for anybody to just sit around waiting for the rapture, because these mean buggers everywhere all over these streets just won't stop proliferating little mini blubbers that they just keep on reproducing by a process of mitosis or whatever. It's just irresponsible. It's entirely irresponsible, and we have to fight. And I'm fighting. I do not want to suffer discouragement when the rapture doesn't happen, but yes, it is first prize for me that it should happen, because I really do want to go home. But is it first prize for God? I want to go home. This place sucks. I hate it. But at the same time, when I think about God, is this how he's always worked? It's written of him that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. How does he? Why would God tend to place Job before Satan? Why would he place Joseph? Why? Like, there's often just this massive thing that he is ultimately displayed as was planning on doing for this human being, like, at some point. So I've noticed, like, I got a dream. Like, there is a desire by the kingdom of darkness, and also by Satan, generally Satan, to get me to just kind of look at nothing but eschatology. And it's like, I'm happy to be a virgin with oil in her lamp, but I'm not happy to be a virgin with oil in her lamp that's not even trying to continue to wait while waiting for the groom. There is an irresponsibility in a lethargic Christianity, anticipating nothing but the rapture. There's just something so dangerous about that, because some people don't have the emotional capacity to bounce back from a disappointment when the world sucks so badly that they can't help but want to go home, and then they don't go home. Some people don't have the emotional strength to just keep taking that. It's a risk for suicide. That's what I'm saying. It's a risk for so much melancholy, despair, that people could throw in the towel, and that's why I stopped. Me, not personally. That's why I would much rather hope for that which appears impossible to achieve or acquire, because the Bible made it clear that what's impossible with man is possible with God. So it doesn't matter that it appears impossible for me to get my husband and my children and my picket fence, yeah, my OBGYN appointments with like twin pregnancies. Like, yeah, I understand that at my ripe old age of 39 turning 40, that there is a picket fence, weird little anomalous pie in the sky dream. And with me having that, really, Karabo, you are naive. I get it. I understand that there is a sliver of naivety there because of the standards of this world. But you know, slivers of naivety are irrelevant in an ecosystem where there is no finality. It's infinite, it's eternal, and the power therein is transcendent. It's omnibenevolent, and there is nothing impossible for it. His name is God. So it's okay, my sliver of naivety, I'll run with it. I'll run with my geriatric womb, anticipating an OBGYN appointment in my 40s for twin pregnancies. Like, I'm happy to dream like that because it's far easier than waiting on the rapture, at least on my emotions. It has a lesser toll. It is embittering to think of the time that is progressing without me getting what I need. However, it's far less disappointing than waiting on nothing but the rapture. It's far less disappointing. However, the devil keeps on slipping that fast one through, right? He keeps on slapping me with that one. Okay, so that's an electric blanket. That's much too hot now. Okay, cool beans and bananas, an electric blanket of which I'm very grateful to God for, because who in the world survives with nothing but a hot water bottle in winter? Who? Anyway, cool beans and bananas, so let's just communicate. Yeah, stuff like that. Like the fact that I even have an electric blanket. There's a future for the man of peace, because God gave her an electric blanket. Woman of peace. Listen, you guys. The despair that comes with it, but look, let me just say, God very potentially might be rapturing us tomorrow. But when it happens, I will still be wondering, is that really it? And why didn't you just give me a husband and kids that would only be, like, the oldest one would only be like 7 when the rapture happens? So I never would get to see my kids become teenagers or go to university or get married. The whole thing that parents basically look forward to, that whole journey throughout life. Yeah, I was never going to get to see that, but at least I would have known what it's like to bear full-term pregnancies and raise some children and be in love with a man, and the two of us basically ride this world out, you know, raising children up in the admonition of the Lord. Like, you could have just given me that experience until further notice, until we go home. Give me what I've always wanted, fellowship with a thriving church. I mean, I watch so many Christians online every single day, and my heart breaks so much because what they have I wish I had. Is that covetousness? It's unhealthy, I guess. Yeah, just a thriving church community and a thriving Christianity, and a Christianity that's not as embittered as mine. I'm like Mara from the book of Ruth. Feel like God has taken everything away from me, and so all that's left for me is to go back to my people and die. All that's left is for me to go back to Israel and die. All that's left is for me to go back to Canaan, I guess, and die. But I'm not letting go of God, but I'm bitter. Like, you know the story of Mara, Ruth's mom-in-law. I feel like Mara, where it is that I guess I was just born again to die again. Like, to die again, I guess a first death. I was already dead in trespasses and sins when I was before I got born again, and then I'm gonna die. Yeah, you know, a physical death if I don't get raptured. So for me it would be like, so I was born again just to die again. But like without actually truly dying, because I will go to heaven. But how in the world you gonna just let me be born again just to die again, God? Like, just like that. Like, all these milestones in life, like, I just never got to experience them just like that. I mean, I get some people die without living because they're so young when they die, or whatever might be the case. But for me, it's like, how am I going to be born again just to die again? What was the purpose of born againing me? You saved me that I might be a person for your own possession, that I might inherit eternal life and have pleasures everlasting in you. Eat of the tree of life bountifully, you know, hop like a gazelle in the field for the rest of eternity. And I'm grateful for that. But is that it? Like, you saved me just so I could be like the thief on the cross, like getting saved at on your deathbed. I mean, you get to enjoy eternity forever, because it looks as if though when I came to Christ, I just got on a deathbed. I became terminally ill. I got born again just to die again. Thief on the cross. Is that what we're doing? Am I the thief on the cross? Am I the thief on the cross? Did I get saved shortly before dying? But my death took 10 years. My death took 12 years. However long. Because I've literally, all I've done as a Christian is die. All I've done is suffer. All I have done is suffer. 10 years now and counting. And when I first started out in the faith, I was suffering, but not as badly as right now. Persecution from left to right, up and down, by family, friends, for simply choosing Christ. I've never known the joy of being a Christian, living a free life among brethren, having a reliable church community. I've never known that. And some Christians experience that from the moment they're born again. And guys, it's covetous to speak like that. I get it. But I, for the life of me, do not. I'm having a hard time embracing that it is likely a reality that I was born again just to die again. Anyway, let me tell you what I dreamt. I had a demonic rapture dream. It was demonic. It was entirely demonic. There was no God in there. There was no God. I've had rapture suggestive dreams. I've had rapture dreams in the past, not a lot. I'm not riddled with them very much. It's not that I've asked a lot for them from God, but barely ever gotten them. Yeah, and I'm a dreamer and a seer, so the infrequency of rapture dreams in my spirit is puzzling to me, because I should be seeing them a lot more, given that I've got all these dreams and all these visions, right? Anyway, in this dream, I was left behind. I mean, that was just the first problem. There is no way that I'm getting left behind. The people who get left behind in the rapture are those who believe they were saved but they weren't. If you're born again, I believe you're going in the rapture. There's no other condition other than redemption. Whether or not you even know about the rapture is irrelevant. What's important to gauge is that salvation is all that you need to make the rapture, okay? There are no conditions to it other than redemption. No conditions to it other than redemption. Okay, and I'm saved. Like, I'm saved. How do I know that I'm saved? I just know that I know that I know. The Spirit testifies with the Spirit that we are sons of God. I just know that I know that I know. I just know. I have an assurance of salvation. That's what I'm getting at. I have an assurance of salvation. I just know that I know that I know. And at death, that'll be validated. Presently in life, it's already validated. And if the rapture happened, well, that too would be validated. So that was the first thing. I was left behind, and this rapture dream was just so demonic, guys. So it was not from God, and there were presences in my dream of people that are so feverishly involved in occult magic, where I am concerned that I know for a fact that there is no way under heaven that was from God, because it's basically their attempt to make me think that which is necessary to think to finally give up on my testimony, my hope, on my acquisition of a future. Okay, first of all, how the rapture happened, it looked as if though Christians were being electrocuted. Like, the people who got raptured were they were, you could see that they were in actual pain during the rapture process. Like, you could, like, one guy got raptured right in front of me, and he was like, basically getting electrocuted. Like, his body was shining, being transformed, right? You know how it's written that we will not all die, but we will be changed. His body was being changed, but that changing process was painful. And he was like, almost like he was being electrocuted. And then after basically getting electrocuted for long enough, he then ultimately disappeared into the sky. And those disappearances just kept on happening all around. Like, a whole bunch of people were busy experiencing this electric shock, okay, that would then ultimately make them disappear. I mean, that is the first unbiblical thing. It's not mapping to the scriptures. We will not all die, but we will be immediately changed. And it does not take time. It is not an electrocution. It happens in the twinkling of an eye. It's an instantaneous transformation. So that was the first lie that I saw in my dream. Those Christians that we, as being those who were being left behind, we saw them getting electrocuted up into the sky. Okay, no, not up into the sky. They never went up. They disappeared on the spot. However, first we got to see them sort of kind of suffering in their transformation process, right? That was the first thing. And then after that happened, because of how it happened in my dream, and because of the fact that I was waiting to get raptured, given that I'm a Christian, okay, I did not believe that it was the rapture that had happened. I did not believe it was a rapture. I thought it was something else. I don't know what, but I just imagined that was something else. So I continued on right ahead to just live my life. The whole dream was shrouded in darkness. It all happened in the pitch of night, and I kept on hopping from house to house of family members. Every time I hop from house to house of family members, God is showing me sorcery, because many of my family members are involved in darkness and are responsible for the calamity that has befallen all of us. Okay, And when I keep on going from house to house, basically, pillar to posting from house to house, it's God showing me just a fruitlessness in attempting to discover a solution from bondages that are afflicting family members by going from pillar to post, house to house, instead of look up and lift up your head for your redemption draweth nigh. Instead of looking at Jesus, they're looking at sangomas. Who has bewitched me? Is it my cousin? Is it my sister? Is it this and that? Anyway, and I kept on moving around from house to house, and people in this society had all gotten used as some strange event happened that, basically made people disappear. First, however, these people having been electrocuted, and everybody imagined that, at least it wasn't me. They were carrying on as normal. They did not think it was a rapture. They didn't believe it was a rapture, and neither did I believe it was a rapture. They were carrying on as largely normal. In my dream, life happens, tragedies happened, and there was a tragedy that happened on a particular date, so let's move on. It's a moment in history that we will all remember, but let's move on, okay? And I tried to do just that, because I didn't think it was the rapture. Why? Because I was here. I was left behind, and I kept on hanging. Okay, so I was moving from pillar to post, from house to house of family members. I then ended up moving, going to go and hang out with people that I don't hang out with. I was hanging out with them. My cousin, like I said, people in that dream were shown me that are destructive to my life, have been destructive, and are unreliable today. Still, we have no relationship. We are not friends. We are not close at all. And I would never hang out with them, not in that capacity. Unless I'm evangelizing them, I would never hang out with them unless they're interested in the gospel. I have no relationship with them. I have no fellowship with many of my family members. And this cousin of mine that used to be my bestie in the family, I was hanging out with her like it was not so much old times, but I was just hovering around her, chilling with her in a way that I just wouldn't today. The only way that I would chill with that chick is if she's prepared to basically sit down and talk about God. Tell me about God. How can I find forgiveness? How can I, that's the only time that I would ever humor a conversation with that woman. Right now, there's just nothing at all left between us. Do you understand what I'm saying? Nothing at all. We're just at enmity, and irrevocable enmity until her redemption. If she gets saved, we could talk. But right now, she's just lost as lost can get, and is a mortal enemy of mine. Okay? But in that dream, with that state of her being my mortal enemy, having destroyed everything of mine, we were having some kind of strange, awkward fellowship. That was yet another demonic thing that was suggested in the dream. I went outside, right? I then went outside, and when I looked up in the sky, there were alien spacecraft all over, Independence Day style alien spacecraft, the way that there was just so many of them in the sky. You know how with Independence Day, there was that flying saucer that was just hovering over one particular city, and then they were all over the world? Yeah, there were alien spacecraft like that. And it was only when I saw those alien spacecraft in the sky that were hovering over our nations, over our cities, that I was like, oh snap. I read about this somewhere, I heard about this somewhere, I watched a YouTube video or two about this somewhere, about this being the great deception. Karabo, you are deceiving yourself into thinking that wasn't the rapture. That's why you're still here. You are deceiving yourself. It was the rapture. I came to a conclusion in my dream that was indeed the rapture. And then I started to be like, but why was I left behind? Why was I left behind? And then I had a dream within that vision where it is that God was in heaven, basically aloof, a figure of sorts that was kind of godlike. He was aloof to even alerting me of why I was left. I couldn't understand. For me, it was but I'm born again, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, what's wrong, what did I do? And then I came to a conclusion that God left me behind because I did not tell people about him, because I did not evangelize, because I was too shy to speak about the gospel. And either in that dream, I was not really me, Karabo, or there was just a flat out brazen lie being communicated. Bottom line is, all I do is tell people about God. My version of it is my YouTube channel. All I do is speak about God. I'm always sounding the alarm. So either the character in my dream was not me, or it was just me being lied to. I don't know. I don't understand. I came to a conclusion that the reason why I was left behind was because I didn't tell people about my God. Guys, the only thing that gets a person in the rapture is salvation. If you're born again, you will make disciples of all nations. If you're not interested in telling anybody about Jesus, you are highly unlikely saved at all. Okay, that's what's good. We're given a command and a burden, a duty that we feel when we get saved to reach others for Christ, and so it becomes part and parcel of us, but somewhat second nature to continue to tell people about Jesus. Yeah, it's an easy burden and a yoke that is light to us, even though the world hates disciples and the world hates the gospel. We nonetheless feel it an easy burden and a yoke that is easy and a burden that is light. When we give the gospel, we're not so scared to evangelize and scared of man that we would not talk about it. God says that if you deny me before men, I will deny you before the Father. So if you deny Christ before men, you are highly unlikely saved at all. So whoever what I was in that dream was some version of me that just does not quite exist in waking life, okay? But that's the conclusion that I reached. And so I then started basically telling everybody in these streets that, okay, look guys, the rapture did happen. I told my uncle, I told everyone, like, the rapture happened. That was Jesus, he took the saints and get born again. And they were all just ignoring me. They were all just walking right by me, but like basically they looked at me on some, please, you and your Christianity, you were busy walking around as a Christian before, and you're still here and you claim that was Jesus, whatever. They were just ignoring me, okay? They would not hear anything at all that I was saying. And I then told them that after 3.5 years, I'm going to get raptured in a mid-tribulation rapture again. Now, I do believe that. I do believe that there's more than one rapture. I believe that the Lord does take the saints prior and then a whole bunch of converts in the tribulation. I do believe somewhere in the midway mark of the tribulation, he takes them again. I believe it's in the Bible, and that's another story for another day. All right. So in my dream, I basically told everybody after 3.5 years, I'm going to go to heaven. God is going to take me. But you guys must get saved too. It would be ideal if you guys also get born again. All of you guys must also get born again. And the dream basically ended with me with me trying to reach people who were refusing Christ, for Christ, in a post-rapture world that was just after the rapture. Like it had just happened. There were yet to be too many calamities. It was dark everywhere, but there were not yet like plagues falling, you know, the seal judgments and all that jazz, the horsemen of the apocalypse. None of that was happening yet. It had yet to happen. All we saw was Independence Day type aircraft in the sky, and that was hovering, and that was the thing that made me realize that I've been left behind after the rapture. Now, that dream was so full of satanic energy that I imagine it wasn't from God. Therefore, I don't believe it, okay? Unless the Lord gives me a glorious, clearly from him rapture dream, I will not share it by saying, guys, I feel as if though maybe I might be mistaken in how close we are to that date. I feel as if though that dream was given me, all right, in order to derail me from my whole, and another thing that I was thinking in my dream. Thank you. That actually is a punchline. I can't believe I forgot it. That another thing that I started to feel in my dream, a sentiment, especially when I was chilling with my cousin, was, I guess I better forget about my husband now. He's not coming. There's no way that that's happening, because all that we're about to endure now is a 7-year tribulation. I ended up throwing in the towel on everything else that I'm waiting on God for on this side. I'm waiting on the Lord for answered prayer. And after I got left behind in the rapture, I was like, whatever, no, that doesn't matter anymore. I'm just waiting to go to heaven now. So that was the big hint that was from the devil. So I don't know whether or not that was a spell from somebody or Satan himself trying to make me feel as if though God will focus more on eschatology. But certainly presences in my dream, like certain family members, especially this cousin of mine, these people are antagonizing what I am waiting on God for. They want me to throw in the towel for what I don't know and start speaking stuff in my ministry that is not what God is resonating. And for me to testify about what God is doing for me is for me to anticipate the deliverance of Joseph, the deliverance of Hannah, the deliverance of people in the Bible that waited for a while for answered prayer and it looked like nothing was coming, and then God did this like ornate show of his power in this believer's life because that person chose not to turn aside to idols when they were suffering. They held fast to God. And the Lord then showed what happens when you have no other gods but him. When you worship him with all of your mind, heart, body, soul, strength, all that jazz, how he delivers you. And that's what I've been doing. I live in a country where people are besotted with ancestors, where people are worshipping all different kinds of weird things. They're doing witchcraft, they're mixing it with Christianity. And a lot of naysayers have been saying to me, give up, throw in the towel, you're naive, all that jazz. Yeah, I've been looked at like I'm very naive for waiting on God for what it is that I asked him for. And also for being onlyist, like Jesus onlyist, or like worshipping no one but Jesus and waiting on no one but Jesus. In Africa, that's like a whole problem. Yeah. it's a total taboo to have only Christ, like that your whole being in spiritually for all of your life's blessings, your life's needs. Yeah, I have been a Jesus Christ onlyist ever since I got born again, I guess, and that has been the thing that has gotten me mocked and teased by many people in my country. And that mockery and that teasing is what it is that is ultimately going to get them humiliated. The table is being prepared for me in the presence of my enemies. Do you understand what I'm saying? The Lord is going to display himself faithful and true in my particular case. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, precisely because I have not turned aside to idols. It is those that don't turn aside to idols that cause the show up of God, because he will not share his table with demons. He will not award an ornate deliverance to someone where people are going to be confused who did it for you, ancestors or Jesus. He will absolutely do no such thing. He will not pitch to a fire. He will not burn a sacrifice chanted over by prophets of Baal. That's what I'm getting at. He will only respond to Elijah. And in this instance, I am Elijah on Mount Carmel. And there are people actively trying to block that because they're scared of my Jesus Christ onlyism. The very thing that they've been mocking and teasing, they're scared of it. They're scared of it because it is wholesome, it is pure, and it's scary. Because it is a perfect storm. It's quiet before it is loud and boisterous. So therefore, now they're going below the belt, actively, literally giving me stupid dreams about some ugly rapture that does not even represent a biblical version of it. The end result of which was me giving up on my hope for a husband and a whole life, basically, in favor of waiting to get raptured after 3.5 years, having endured the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. Look, the rapture's coming, but not like that. Not like what I saw in my dream. And like I said, the rapture is imminent. I do believe that. But I also believe that God has a double-pronged process in delivering saints, where he does it on earth and in heaven. And my earthly deliverance has yet to happen. And while there are some Christians that pass away before they get earthly breakthrough, I just look at God and I'm like, really, is that how this is going to end? Am I just going to die? Am I just going to get raptured? Why couldn't you just give me children? And if at all I was going to die anyway, be a mom that leaves a 7-year-old daughter behind. Like, but why under heaven did you not give me some kind of joy, even a small amount of experience of what it's like to be a Christian? Seeing as I was born in a Christian country, I wasn't born in Iran. It wasn't the worst country to live in as a Christian. Why didn't you just give me that which many South African Christians have? And for me, all I could imagine is that because there is a purpose to my suffering, and that purpose, I don't imagine, is the rapture. That is everybody's breakthrough. I imagine it's deliverance for me that is going to display the power of my God. And I've got people trying to rain on my parade, like Michelle raining on the parade of her husband David, sending me all different kinds of curses to make me focus on that which I ought not focus on. I come from a time when I was looking at nothing but eschatology. We're done with that. It's not safe, it's unhealthy. A small amount of it or a reasonable amount of it is worthwhile. But when you eat that only for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it can discourage you severely. But if the rapture does happen, hallelujah, praise God. I, however, thought that maybe something else was coming. I don't know. But I'm just saying, based on looking around at the world, I feel like we have just ever so slightly a little bit more time. Not too much, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more, but you know, we don't know. But I'm not about to allow myself to be depressed by waiting on nothing but getting caught up in the sky, a supernatural process that's definitely coming, but no one knows the day or the hour. I'm not about to focus on that. So anybody trying to get me to think on nothing but that is just naive. I come from that time. It was too disappointing. I would much rather maintain a naive hope as a woman turning 40 to one day have a picket fence and a doting husband. Like proper, I will maintain that hope rather. That's all I wanted to say. I'm signing out in the name of Jesus Christ, Grand K. Peace. I hope you've been edified.